Welcome to the Backseat Thriver podcast. I'm Christina Johnston.
And I'm Bridget Kostas.
And we really think you guys should listen because we think we're pretty funny.
We are pretty funny.
Yeah.
We're unfiltered. It's real. It's sometimes what you need to hear.
Sometimes what you don't.
But tune in.
Tune in. That was good.
That works.
Oh my gosh. After a week of being off, we are back.
Good morning.
Good morning.
A week.
Yeah.
It feels longer than that.
It feels like it's been 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
It feels like a month.
Yeah, it does. I'm so happy to be sitting here today.
I know. You look tan. You're all nice and glowy.
Well, I'm trying to keep up with you. You've got that great olive skin. I had to, bake
it's the
myself.
Latin in me.
Yeah.
You might have a little added extra skin cancer percentage increase.
Yeah, I would say that's probably not a lie. Although I did most of my base tan before I went on vacation, so that when I was on vacation, I laid under a palapa for a week and just enjoyed the ocean breeze and.
While the rest of us were working and, living their life.
Yeah.
A palapa. I don't even want to hear about it.
Perfect. Great, because I didn't want to tell you anyway.
I don't even want to see pictures. I'm just going to stalk your Instagram. Don't worry.
Oh, you know what? I took some photos for the backseat page.
Did you?
Yeah, because I was thriving in the backseat this week.
Oh.
This past week.
You were napping in the back seat.
That too. That too.
There is no thriving going on. You were straight up napping.
Man, who doesn't love a good nap? Are you a napper?
I'm not. Okay, so that's so funny. Like, I was literally having this conversation with my mom and my baby brother I want to say it was like last weekend. They are nappers. Like, if my mom doesn't get her nap in, like, it's just a bad day.
Yeah.
And she can be anywhere from a 20-minute power nap to like an hour and a half. My brother's the same way. I can't nap unless I'm sick or there's nobody around and I'm absolutely exhausted or hungover. Mm-hmm. But
that's a good nap.
I have more FOMO than anything else. Like, what's happening? Like, what's everybody doing? Like, I just want to be, like, I want to be around and I can be in the same room with everybody and be laying down, but I don't want to nap.
So does that mean you're an extrovert?
Yeah.
Okay. So because I think sometimes like introvert, extrovert, they can be confusing because I think people assume I'm such an extrovert. I'm such an introvert. Like, I get so exhausted by, I love being around people, but I get so drained from it. And then I need to be alone to recover and like reset myself.
I don't think that's an introvert.
No?
No.
Really? What do you think I am?
Oh, you're a total extrovert because you constantly have to do something. Like, to have a day with nothing. Like, you can have like one or two of those, but then you are one of those people that quadruple books your calendar and you're late to everything and everything over.
Yep.
I'd
say you know me pretty well.
Yeah. No, you are an extrovert.
Okay.
Maybe you want to be an introvert.
But see, I love napping. Like, you say you have FOMO. So anybody who doesn't know what FOMO is, the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And I have JOMO. I have joy in missing out. Like, I don't care that you're all together without me. I am just fine alone.
Maybe it's your audience. Maybe it's the people you're around.
Yeah, right. Awkward.
I enjoy those people in my circle.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, but
you are such an extrovert. You definitely like recharge from others.
But I hang like I'm a homer.
Yeah.
I like my people.
Yeah.
I like my people.
Yeah.
Not that I don't enjoy the company of others or going out and meeting new people. I can definitely do that. I mean, that's my job, and just like the whole customer service component of, hello, how are you? What's your name? Nice
Constantly
to meet
being
you.
on. Yep.
Yeah, you're always on. I mean, I don't dislike it, but it's not something that I seek out. I like my people.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Today.
Present company included.
Present company included. I like my people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we talking about today?
What are we talking about? So speaking of liking our people,
Most of the time.
We are going to be we're going to have a discussion around a very silent topic that I think that a lot of we're bringing much more awareness to it, and we're making it a normal conversation. We're trying to destigmatize postpartum depression, and why, why has it been such a quiet topic, and why has it, why don't mothers or women talk about this more often? I think there's a lot of expectations, unrealistic expectations when it comes to motherhood. I feel that there's a lot of silence with this topic. There's a lot of shame wrapped around this topic because there's an expectation. There's an expectation of women that you're supposed to know how to mother. So but
there's also the expectation that you're supposed to work full time. And there's also an expectation that if you work full time, or maybe the thought that if you work full time, you're a crappy parent. You're letting someone else raise your kids. And then when you stay home with your kids, you're a crappy parent because you're not contributing and you're lazy. There's so much to unravel with that one. But I think like the biggest topic I feel is just really understanding it and why you don't know that your friends had postpartum depression unless you bring it up. It's almost like you don't know that there's this huge community of women with miscarriages. Yeah.
Like it's not talked about until you've had it. And it's not something, when you look at the baby books that you get and what to expect when I'm expecting. Is there a postpartum depression, chapter or its own book? Like,
no, there is not.
Volume 2, postpartum depression, what to expect when you're expecting. No, there's not. Like there's
what to expect when no one told you what to expect when this happens.
Exactly. And I think it's, there's not enough conversation around it. There's not enough awareness, and it's almost taboo to bring it up when you're pregnant.
Like, don't muddy the waters. That's such an ugly thing to talk about. She's happy. Leave her alone. Let her enjoy this.
Let her enjoy the pregnancy.
Yeah. I will say, I feel like it's become one of my missions ever since having a kid 10 years ago is checking on my friends that are new moms of like, okay, they're about to have a kid or they have a kid. And I'm like, okay, if you start feeling like all of these things, come tell me, because I want to talk to you about it, because I just remember having no one to go to and looking for resources. And I think that is what's really tough is even 10 years ago, and we're going to talk a little bit about how new this diagnosis is and how little research has been done around it and how little resources there are for it because there's just not enough that's known about it. So I want to make sure that we leave here talking through the causes, the risk factors, the symptoms, and the treatments. And there's a little bit of myth out there with some of these treatments. So I think based on our experiences, just being able to go through and just give some facts, but also just some support and acknowledge good luck, because there isn't support for this specific thing, or not in general, but it's difficult. And it's exactly like you have to go searching for it. It's not just coming to you. So I think that's it makes me really sad for when you think about how many women are having kids every year and like what an important part of life it is for so many people. And then to just be knocked on your ass with like, this is not what I thought was going to happen.
And it's not something, for our listeners, Christina and I both went through it. We went through it in different different ways, and the extent of our postpartum is different, and it's like that for everyone. That it can be incredibly intense. It can last a couple of months. It can last a couple of years. It can continue into it can continue past the expectation of the 1 year. When we think of a lot of the diagnosis, they say for postpartum depression is, once you deliver your baby to up to 15 months or something like that. Everybody is different. And there is a true difference between postpartum depression and baby blues.
Big time. I'm so glad you brought that up. I think that's a perfect place to start.
I think it's a perfect
what
place
it is
to start.
And what it isn't.
All right. Do you want to start?
Okay. Well, was I supposed to do something for this?
Wait, hold on. What was I supposed to talk about?
Okay.
I think the difference is the time frame and the intensity. Mm-hmm. At least it was for me.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that you should expect baby blues, right? Because I think baby blues are talked about. There's going to be a period for a week or two where you're going to feel a little weepy, a little tired, and it'll go away quick.
That's what's in What to Expect When You're Expecting is you get the baby blues.
It's no biggie.
It's no biggie. It's fine. It's new.
Yep.
You don't know what you're doing. Of course, you're supposed to have a little anxiety and depression and sadness.
You just had a miracle. A miracle. Oh, okay. So baby blues, expect it, and a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It was, it was interesting. Talking to people who are new moms, and sometimes they kind of question it, and it's like, okay, so pay attention to this. If this is not resolved within 2 weeks, then it's time to talk to your doctor again. And it's funny because it's when to expect it, and when it doesn't catch you so off guard, it's a little less jolting.
And it feels intense and it feels severe, but there's truly a difference in the intensity between baby blues and postpartum depression. Mm-hmm. So with my first child, I had postpartum depression. With my second child, I had baby blues.
Okay. See, and that's so interesting and you knew the difference.
In hindsight, I can sit here and say the difference. When it was happening, I didn't know it was happening until it went past the 2 weeks, until it became so intense and severe. And in my case, the postpartum depression wasn't my feeling towards my baby as much as it was at my spouse in my relationship. And when we talk about, those feelings, those persistent feelings of sadness, anger, hopelessness, the emptiness, are you having a difficult time bonding with your baby? These are all of those things when we're talking about the difference between baby blues of, I'm so sad, what happened to my body? Or I'm not pregnant anymore, now I have a baby. Those are, you cry, when you're watching a movie, a Snuggles commercial comes on and the baby's, snuggling their snuggle bear. And you're like, oh my God, I just love my baby so much. These are those types of, those are your baby blues. But when you're thinking of these intense emotions of departure, or I'm going to run away.
Oh my gosh.
Or I'm going, you're having panic attacks, or you're having, these extreme bouts of depression, where you're crying for hours on end, where it's just so deep. The difference between a deep cry and I'm crying at a movie. When you Land Before Time and, Littlefoot's mom dies, it's like, oh, that's so sad. Or, something happens in life where you have a breakup, something like that. It's deep. It is such a deep, deep feeling. It's such a deep emotion. And the difference between those. And that's something that, when I had my first son, I had postpartum depression, and it was very intense that I wanted to leave. Like, I didn't want to leave my baby. I wanted to pick up my baby and leave and jump in the car and go away and just kind of live in a cabin in the mountains like Nell and her mom, and like just raise my baby and just be alone. Like, I really felt that way. Or like that scene, like I always, when I think back to that emotion when I was having my postpartum depression, there's that scene at the end of Terminator with Sarah Connor where she's in her Jeep and she's pregnant and she's got like her cool headband on and she has her dog in the passenger seat and she's in her Jeep and she's just getting ready to take on the world and the apocalypse, and there's just this long road. Like, that's what I envisioned. Like, I just wanted to grab my dog, put my baby in the back seat and take off and just, me, my dog, and my baby, and the world was going to be fine. And
see, I wish that was the kind of depression I had. That sounds pretty great.
Just get in the car and drive away. But it really was like, that was how I felt. Like, I intensely loved my baby and I intensely disliked my spouse. I didn't want to have to deal with life outside of me and my child. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to have to, parent. And I had a stepchild at the time, and I didn't want to have to parent. I didn't want to have to do, clean the house and do the dishes and do the laundry and cook dinners and,
do the things that moms have to do.
Yeah, be part of a family. Yeah. Like, those are the things I didn't want to do.
See, and it's so interesting because the postpartum depression shows up in such intensely different ways, and it's so interesting. Listen to your experience, because mine was like the opposite, right? Where I remember, and so when we talk about perinatal depression, we're talking about prepartum depression and we're talking about postpartum depression. And there's certainly a correlation between the two. And I think a lot of moms who have had PPD can look back and say, I did feel a lot of that during my pregnancy. And that can be for a number of reasons. The risk factors, knowing your family history is incredibly important. Knowing, is there mental illness in your family? That was really never something that we had talked about in my family. And so whether or not that contributed to it, who knows? But know that if you haven't asked your parents those questions, ask those questions. I mean, this is the ugly side of it that people just don't want to talk about, because this is supposed to be such a beautiful moment in your life. And for about 19% of us, it's not the most beautiful thing in the world. And I think that's the most shameful piece of it, is I have this baby in front of me. I'm supposed to love it so much. And what happens when you don't feel that, when you want to check out, when you want to run away? Like I on a daily basis just kept saying, I just want to leave. I just want to go to Mexico by myself and never come back. And even saying it out loud right now, it's very shameful, and that's the part that there's not enough research around PPD, that we don't exactly understand the biomarkers for this. Like, we don't who is actually at risk. And so again, getting back to some of those risk factors, we're talking about the history of depression and anxiety. We're talking about stressful events that happen during your pregnancy. It could be the death of someone. It could be domestic violence in your relationship. It could be financial issues, job loss. I mean, there's just so many huge traumatic things that can happen during your pregnancy that can trigger this. Mixed feelings about pregnancy. A lot of women end up pregnant and maybe not with the person they wanted it to be with, maybe not in the right situation they wanted it, whatever. Maybe they just never wanted it. So that's a really tricky part of this as well. And then, of course, substance abuse. So all of these factors, if you fall into these categories, that's certainly something that if you intend and want to have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy postpartum, these are all things that you should be looking at. So, and it's really interesting. So I remember after I had my son, and it was definitely like within that couple of weeks of just like okay, this must be baby blues, even though I don't even think I knew what that was at the time either, of just like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be crying all the time and not, you talk about a lack of sleep.
Oh, yeah. Sleep deprivation?
We know that
one
it's
of the
a form of torture.
That's one of the highest risk factors. Yeah.
So the thing that cracks me up the most, and especially in hindsight, when you look at the treatments for postpartum depression, there's all kinds of things that you got to make sure that you're doing for yourself. Okay, so as a brand new mom, let's make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Let's make sure you're having a healthy, nutritious meal that you've prepared yourself.
You're hydrating.
Let's make sure that you're really taking care of your mind, body, and soul, and getting that self-care in every day, and showering, maybe going for a walk, doing all those beautiful things.
Remove stressors from your life.
Remove stress from your life. So as long as you're doing all of those things, you'll be fine. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Even with the best
How
of
many
villages.
days did you go non-showered with like
Exactly.
milk-stained t-shirts?
Exactly. Right. And just like, oh, your skin is glowing. It's tears.
It's sweat, tears, a little baby vomit on my face.
Yeah.
Your skin looks amazing. It's because I have breast milk vomit all down my face. Like crazy.
Right? So hey, we know that there's not enough research around this, but when our solution for a new baby for depression is get plenty of sleep. Okay, good luck.
Well, and I think, and it comes back to, it's like these I'm calling them unrealistic expectations, right? They say, get a support group and, make sure that you have your social support. That's a lack. That's why you have a higher risk of postpartum depression is a lack of social support. No shit. How many women out there are having, childbirth out of wedlock, or, they don't have social support. We're in a society now where, your friend group is very, very small, and we don't have our tribe. We don't have our pack of women that are going to help us raise our child and, just take my baby while I'm trying to sleep and rest, and then bring him to me when I need to nurse, and then take him back. I mean, we don't even have a healthcare system now that has nurseries. Like, you're expected to have the baby in your room as soon as you give birth.
Good luck.
Like, here you go. Yep. You asked for it.
Yep.
Especially in the United States as a culture, like when you think of FMLA, like just listen to this one.
So explain what that is, because not everyone might know what that is.
Okay, so family medical leave of absence. In the United States, that was enacted in 1993 to have paid maternal leave. So you would have that FMLA. But in the United States, we get up to 12 weeks. And that 12 weeks in theory should be paid, but you have up to 12 weeks to keep your job. And then depending on the type of childbirth that you had, so if you had a vaginal delivery, you're lucky if you get 6 weeks. If you had a cesarean, then you get the 12 weeks. There's your up to. Just think about that. Like 12 weeks to get your body back in
and mind
back in order. And situate your child for childcare, or, we just think about putting your 6-week-old baby into childcare. And then, now you got to go back to work. Now you talk about eliminating stressors. You talk about making sure that you're getting enough sleep and that you're hydrating. I mean, so when I had my second child, I was lucky. I had 16 weeks because I had the extra PTO. So I took that, I banked my PTO. I had the 12 weeks. My boss at that time, she was wonderful. I asked her, I was like, hey, I have this extra time. Can I take 16 weeks? That's almost 4 months. But even during that time, like, I was so incredibly stressed to have to go back to work. And what am I going to do for childcare for my infant? Now you bring in the aspect of you got to pump at work. Do you think that they have, lactation rooms for women? No. I'm plugging in our bathroom, and at work, I'm plugging in on the bathroom, and I'm put the toilet seat down, and I've got my
your pump on.
My pump on in the bathroom, and you can hear it outside of the hallway. It's like, so you talk about like, oh my God, how do we not just, and I'm sitting on the public toilet.
Ugh.
How do you get into that zone?
Yes.
Like, how do you get into that zone
You don't.
I'm okay, now I'm going to go ahead and pump, and I'm going to do my, obviously you have to do it. You've got to do it. But it's like, come on, man. Like there is not enough resources for women to successfully transition from childbirth back into the working world or just back into life.
Back into life. And you know what, Bridget, for some people, I was one of those people that I had every freaking resource. I had once the flag had been raised and it was like, oh, there's something very wrong with her. This is not baby blues. Like this, why is she still crying? Why is she hiding in the bathroom? Why is she like, why doesn't she want to hold her baby? All of the things, I had such a village around me, and that is something like to the day I die, I will be so grateful for. And I recognize how rare that is. And I see my new mom friends, and they've got no one, and their husband is already back to work, and they are alone and just thrown into this. I had somebody, it was my mom the majority of the time, but my mother-in-law, my mom, my sisters sleeping at my house for the first 3 months after the alarm had been sounded that she is not okay. I was not alone. And that was a huge thing. And you talk about, I couldn't even sleep in the same room with my baby because I thought that my heart was going to come out of my chest. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. As soon as I would see that sun starting to set, and I would know, oh my gosh, this is going to be one of the worst nights of my life, because every night was the worst night of my life. And my mom would bring me my child. She would sleep in the room with him and bring me my child when I needed to feed him, and then take him away, and I would sleep. But it's like, there's still this sick thing in your brain that is going, yeah, well, guess what? In a couple hours, you're going to have to do this again. Like, or I would leave the house for a minute, or someone would say, go take a walk. The
anxiety kicks in.
The anxiety kicks in of, okay, yeah, I'm doing something nice for myself, but like, this is temporary. I have to go back. I have to do it on my own.
I have to do it on my own. And it is, we're talking about PPD, postpartum depression, but there's postpartum anxiety, there's postpartum psychosis, there's so much that happens in that postpartum phase because of our hormones and because of the stress on our body, because of our environmental stressors, everything that happens out there. So, as we're sitting here talking about, the FMLA enactment in 1993, like, we still don't have like a national policy around paid paternal leave. So, when we're talking about the help that you need, and if you do have, a spouse in your life that can also help during that time, that you guys get the time off together, that's so incredible, and that's so incredibly helpful. But I mean, even when we look at, just FMLA was enacted in 1993. In 1994, that PPD was recognized as a billable medical condition. Like, just think about that. Like, we've been, as women, we've been experiencing this for centuries.
From the backseat.
From the back seat, exactly. And we're thriving, and we're continuing to thrive, and we continue to move on. And that's where it just blows my mind, everything that we talk about, just the lack of research and the lack of attention that happens, to women. And, when we think of like, at least for me, when I think of like 3 core phases in our life where we have the most extreme hormonal flux that a lot of these symptoms come into play. The depression, the anxiety, the isolation, the where you feel alone. You don't realize it until hindsight. When we're going through puberty. When you start your period, you're crazy. Your parents are like, "Oh dear God, this girl is going nuts. She's losing her mind. Who is this child?" And oh, okay, she started her period. All right, so there's step one, and then and then if you have kids, there's number two. There's the number two scenario in your life where you go through these extreme emotions and these extreme hormonal fluxes in your body. So, all right, so there's a second time we get to go through it, and then we have menopause. And it's the same shit. The lack of sleep, the anxiety, the depression, the brain fog, all of this happens. Why? Massive hormonal shift. So it's like, when are we going to get the attention that's needed in order to really focus on this stuff? And it's like, I was telling my husband this morning, I was like, thanks a lot, Eve. Thanks a lot, Eve, for taking a bite of the apple. And now we have to deal with all this drama. Like, what would have happened? We'd have it simple like guys, right?
Could you imagine? Well, and I think that's what's so interesting about this is that PPD is so complex, right? There is no single factor. It does not hit a certain demographic more so than the other. It is so much of it is hormones, which you cannot control. It is a chemical imbalance. And after childbirth, you have birth. Did I just say birth?
Birthing and after childbirth.
After childbirth. After childbirth, you have huge drops in estrogen and progesterone. And you have the psychosocial elements of isolation, of relationship issues, of extreme exhaustion, coupled with the fact that there's a stigma and a lack of awareness and education on this. So if it happens to you, you feel so bad about yourself, but also you're not educated enough on it because nobody told you about it.
And they don't want, you don't want to plant the seed.
Right. Am I going to manifest this if I learn about it? No, we don't have enough research. There's no identified genetic predispositions that can tell you if this is going to happen to you. And I think that's so scary because I think you go into parenthood and pregnancy, you do all the genetic testing, you normally know what to expect. And if there's something, God forbid, really wrong with your pregnancy, you know that going into it. And it doesn't be for the most part, right? I know there's absolute exceptions to that, but you kind of know what you're expecting. You kind of know, okay, I've got a healthy child on the way. And if you don't, you know that. And this is something that just really catches you off guard. It is a chemical imbalance and a shift that you cannot control. And the treatments around this it's just so bizarre because talking about it is a huge, right? Getting a counselor and talking about this. But if you're anything like me, now I know this was a couple decades ago for you, but for me, only 1 decade ago. So I had no one to call. I'm like, who do I even ask about this? Yeah. And I remember going to a support group, and that was, my mom came with me. It was the scariest thing ever. I'm just like looking around like, who are these? Like, these are people that showed up for the free breakfast, right? Like, I don't even think this person has a kid. What are you doing here? It was, and I remember feeling embarrassed when I walked in the room and just like, I don't even want to talk about this, because it's just not what we teach people that they're supposed to expect. You are supposed to expect the happiness and the sunshine and the instant mad love. But what happens when you don't feel that?
Mm-hmm. What?
Exactly. So
how do you power through? Right? Do you power through?
Well, we talked about all that. Make sure you get plenty of sleep. Yeah. Make sure you have a chef cooking you all the meals and your trainer coming to help you with your body.
Bring in your social circle.
Right.
And then like for me, like I am such a germaphobe. I really am.
I love that about you.
don't take my baby out until they've had their first vaccinations. Don't bring them out. So then it's like, okay, well, you don't get your first vaccination until they're what, like 2 months old? So like you can't.
Cool, have fun at home.
Make sure you wash your hands and sanitize and take your shoes off and put your booties on and wear my bib and don't put the baby on you because you wore come here, let me smell you. Let me smell you. Did you put
Change
perfume
your
on?
shirt.
So you know, and that's where I feel like you and we didn't go into our pregnancies with depression. We didn't, I mean, I think everybody has just, you know, little bits and pieces kind of depending on your situation. But you and I went into our pregnancies, you know, pretty psychologically sound, I would say. And then you look at that, and I've never been treated for depression. I've never been treated for anxiety. Have I always known I had OCD? Sure. Does that give me a little anxiety? Probably. But I didn't have postpartum anxiety. But if you know, as you're talking about, there is no, you know, what is the predisposition for postpartum depression? If you have some of these clinical diagnoses, you can probably consider your chances a little bit higher. You can
know that you have to manage it.
You can know that this may happen. Your family, your partner would know that this may happen. So, you know, be aware of the signs and the symptoms. But I just think that there's still, like you said, like pregnancy is so beautiful. It's so wonderful. It's so great. You should love being pregnant. You should love the childbirth. You should love nursing. Like this is such a beautiful thing. And if it's not, you feel so bad. Like you feel
I'm
like
doing this all wrong.
You feel like it's that perfect mother myth that you are not you know, that societal expectation that you are not living up to as a woman.
Right.
And you feel so shamed. You feel so shamed.
So shamed. And everything I was reading at the time when I'm frantically trying to research like what is going on is like, you're probably feeling the angst, and like if you're anything like me, and I had postpartum depression, and I had to wake up every hour to make sure that my child was breathing. I'm like, I was doing the opposite. I'm like, maybe if I don't go in there, you know, for a month, somebody else will take care. It just, it's like, there's the shame that you have this, but then when it's not even, it's like, okay,
it's your judgment.
Yes. And so much of it on yourself too. But like, in the way that you're talking about it, like I needed to protect my kid at all costs. I'm like, how do I get out of this situation? Where can I run to? How much cash do I have stashed away somewhere that no one will ever find me? What a sick thought, right? And I think that I'm so curious, you know, and I know they're doing a lot of research. There was an article that came out just last month that they're looking at certain biological markers that have specific molecules through a blood test that could tell you if you're going to be more, what am I trying to say? If you're more at risk for PPD. And so, but again, it's like, because this is not something, like you go into surgery and it's like, okay, here's what could happen. Here's what couldn't happen. You know everything. Like, we're not educating moms enough because it's not glamorous. It's not this beautiful thing to talk about. So it's so ugly when it happens to you. And it's so heartbreaking because you hear these stories about these women, and you're so quick to just, what an awful, disgusting mom that she could say that, she could feel that. That is a chemical imbalance in her brain. She does not, she is not wishing that that's how she behaved. And, you know, you were talking a little bit about the postpartum psychosis and how scary that stuff is, you know, when you literally are out of your mind and you're having voices and
hallucinations, and
how scary.
Just these awful, awful thoughts.
Awful thoughts about, and there are voices telling you that your kids are better off dead.
Yeah. And
you believe it.
It is. It's sad. And, you know, when you look at like social media pressure, right? You know, as a new mom, you're scrolling and you're just seeing beauty after beauty after beauty, and
rested
all these amazing
faces,
and
small bodies
and little beautiful onesies and wraps and, to be a mother and all of these things. And then if you don't see social media on the nasty side of, the depression, the sleep deprivation, you don't see people being honest in that space. And I think if there was more of that, it'd be like, oh yeah, okay. It's, almost like and not that it's a glamorous thing, but, if you fill your feed with a bunch of depressed mothers, it's like you said, are you manifesting that depression? You could be. You could be. Are you bringing yourself into a scenario where it is going to be, more intense? And that's where it is like everything else in our lives, right? It's that healthy balance. And it's how do you become aware of, these types of situations? How do you become aware of postpartum depression without dwelling on it?
Mm-hmm.
How, and it's like everything else that they share with you, well, you could have preeclampsia. Okay. Well, you could, have post-childbirth bleeding, but we don't dwell on those. That's not something that we dwell on. You could have postpartum depression. That could happen. Just be aware. Here's signs and symptoms. If you don't get enough sleep, you don't do this. You're like, okay, what the hell? What? And I think, when we look at the not all moms, like you said, it took you a while to ask for help. It took you didn't feel that you had that trusted space because there was that unrealistic expectation that you needed to be Wonder Woman as soon as you had your baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, having, if you can, having that emotional support, having your circle before you go into your childbirth and just making sure, like you said, you stay close to your friends when they're getting ready to have a baby. You stay close. You ask them how they're doing. Can I come over? Can we meet for lunch? And can I have your baby for a little while? And you just go take a shower.
Mm-hmm. Go nap.
Go take a nap.
Yeah.
Like that's so important. And, when my mom realized that was, what I was going through, she was over all the time. She was coming in and she was taking my baby and I was napping at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
I went and took a nice long hot shower and, she was cooking meals for me. Once she saw that I was going through this, and like you said, I had these babies a couple decades ago. I didn't have the internet I didn't have social media. There was MySpace.
Gosh, you're right.
There was MySpace. That was the only social media I had then.
Wow.
And then I didn't have the internet to troll and find all of these. I had the books that they assigned me when I got pregnant. And it's like I said, I'm learning all of these things in hindsight, like, oh no, that was postpartum depression. That was baby blues. And then when I talked to some of my girlfriends that really struggled, and you look at the stressors that they had during their pregnancy, you look at their situations that they had after, their postpartum, that they knew that their partner that they had this baby with wasn't the right person. So it made them even more anxious. It made them even more depressed that this isn't my forever person that I wanted to have a child with, but this was kind of the expectation of the relationship moving forward. So I think there's that some of my friends have dealt with that type of postpartum blues and depressions as well. So I think and like I said, you don't realize that your circle has gone through it until you've gone through it, until you start socializing, until you start vocalizing that this happened to me.
I didn't even know that you had it until we started. I mean, I think maybe 6 months ago when this was on our list of things to talk about, you brought that up and I was like, oh my gosh, we never even discussed that, right? And I think that is also like this is your PSA to check on your girlfriends who just had babies and say, do you feel depressed? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel sad? Do you feel numb? The numbness that I felt and how angry I felt at myself for feeling nothing, it was so extreme. And it was interesting because one of the therapists that I had in the beginning of all of this, she said to me, you are a type A, you're very driven career-wise. You're kind of used to just being good at, like, things come naturally to you, and whatever challenge is in front of you, you'll tackle it and you'll handle it well. Motherhood is not the same thing. And my son cried 23 out of 24 hours a day. Anytime he screamed. I mean, every memory of driving to California or to the mountains, 2-hour drive, he screamed the whole time. And I remember just feeling like, what did I do wrong? Why can't I get this kid to shut up? What is the problem with me? Why am I not good at this? And I remember one night my sister was with me and he was, just screaming. And it was like he had been fed, his diaper's clean, blah, right? All of the things that you think to do as a new mom. And my sister said, Chris, let me just take him for a second. And I probably never apologized to her. I whipped my head around and I was like, get away from me. Like, this is my kid. I can do this, because I was just so angry. Like the feeling of being such a failure. I can't even comfort my own kid, and somebody stepping in to help. And I just turned into a monster. Like, I will rip your head off before I let you help me, because I have to be good at this, not you. I have to be good at this. And so I do think there is something to that for women who constantly strive to succeed and to perform, and that's all they know. And it's like, this rocks you to a different level, and you're just like, oh my gosh, wait, I just have to resign to the fact that I don't know what I'm doing and I suck at this. That's depressing.
This is your opportunity to apologize to your sister. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry, sis. If you remember that night in California when I screamed at you, I didn't mean it. It wasn't me talking.
It wasn't me. But it's true, and I think parenting, if there's one thing that we are sharing on all of our episodes, is anything that you do takes work. Everything that you want to excel at takes work. You will never be perfect at it. My goal is that I hope that I don't, traumatize my kids so much that they have to spend thousands of dollars in therapy. But,
hopefully not tens of thousands. It's definitely going to be thousands.
Hopefully their insurance covers a lot of it. If not, I'm sorry, kids. No, but I think, it does not, you should not be expected to know this overnight. And it doesn't matter how many parenting books you read. It doesn't matter how many different, YouTube videos you subscribe to and blogs that you read. It helps you. It helps you paint the picture. A podcast like this will help you identify the signs and symptoms of postpartum depression and know that you should ask for help. There is help out there, and that you can engage with your people and let them know that I need help. I need to take a shower. I need to sit down and, eat a sandwich and have it, still warm and toasty. And
that doesn't mean you failed. And I think that we're so built to not ask for help. And so, I can't believe how much support I had. But in the moment, it doesn't matter. You could have 100 people. What do you need? And it's like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I need. And I think that, as we grow as a society, and, the more so when you think of, even 50 years ago, it was an expectation, right? You are a woman, you
bear children,
you become birthing age, you find a man, you have a family, you procreate, you have children. I think we sat down with all of our kids at one point when they were, in their late teens, like, do you guys want to be parents? Do you guys want to have kids? And half of them said, yeah. The other half said, I don't know. I'm like, more power to you. It's not an expectation. Like, when you think of like our female society now, like, we're CEOs, we're running Fortune 500 companies. We don't have this maternal expectation anymore. We don't have to have kids. We don't have, and more power to you if you know that you don't want to have children. Don't bring a kid into this world just because you're a female and it's your expectation to procreate, and because you have a uterus, you should use it. No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. If you don't want one, don't
There's
have
our
one.
PSA, everyone.
There's our PSA. Get help if you want to have a kid.
Yep.
If you don't want to use your uterus, close up shop. You don't have to.
Okay, so, in wrapping this episode up, I'm so glad we did this one because I think that we hit some really important stuff, and truly just the fact that we don't know enough about this is mind-blowing to me. But know that when you start reaching out and asking for help, you are going to find these beautiful relationships happen when you least expect it. And that's what's going to get you through this. And there's no, you've got medication, and that's certainly helpful and should be part of your toolkit, as you work with your doctor on this one. But don't wait to reach out. After you recognize that there's something else going on, it's time to reach out to your doctor, and it's time to get a game plan going, because it is not something that you should be doing alone. And
I agree.
We have to rally around our people on this one. So we talked a little bit about the risk factors, the symptoms, the treatments. And I think, just the more that we can educate on this, the less shame there should be, because why should I be ashamed that I had a triggering event that kicked off chemicals in my brain that I cannot take a walk in the sun and breathe in some rainbows and feel better about it? It doesn't work that way.
I agree. And I think if there's one thing that I want our listeners to recognize today is it's okay to not feel okay. And that asking for help is an act of strength, not failure. And, and you will move forward. You will have that bond with your child. You will love them. The postpartum depression, if you recognize it and you get the care that you need, you will move past it. Your child is 10. My youngest is 18, and I have the most beautiful relationship with my kids, and they are thriving young men and women, and I couldn't ask for a better relationship. So just know that there is light at the end of this tunnel, and that it will get better. This is a phase like everything else. If you get the care that you need.
Beautifully said. All right, so that's a wrap for today. We're coming back. We've got exciting stuff coming up. So I'm not gonna check out our Instagram and our social pages for teasers of what's coming, but we've got some big guests in the coming months. We've got some really good stuff lined up.
We have a big guest next Friday.
Yeah, we've got some
big local.
We've got some good stuff coming.
Tease you. We're gonna tease you. So if you want to know who's coming next Friday, follow us on our Instagram at backseat.thriver. And as always, you can find us on our website at backseatthriver.com. You can find us on YouTube for these live videos at Backseat Thriver. And as always, you can follow us on LTD Media. Get the app, go to the YouTube page, and stay tuned for our secret guest for next Friday, secret local rock star.
Bum, bum, bum.
Thank you for listening, besties. We'll see you soon.
See you next Friday. Bye.